Okay. Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me here today to talk about the Thames Tideway Tunnel, otherwise known as the super sewer. If I click through. So, our company was set up to deal with a core problem of sewage going into the River Thames, and we wanted to prevent the frequent weekly overflows of sewage that were going into the Thames. Apart from that, though, we've had a much wider vision. Not only did we want to comply and need to comply with legislation, we also wanted to use it as an opportunity to create additional benefits for the City of London, for those people living and working in London, and to also foster a greater connectivity to the River Thames, and that was all part of our vision. But first, to start off with, Sir Joseph Bazalgette, a Victorian engineer, built the combined sewers that we see in London today, and they are actually pristine sewers that are working totally fine today. The only problem is that he did have the vision to supersize the sewer for a London population of 4 million, when it was just 2 million at time of construction. But we are now approaching a population in London of 9 million. So it's not that the current sewage system doesn't work, it is a matter of capacity. The sewage system in London is a combined sewer overflow, so not only do you get sewage going into the system, you also get rainwater going into the system. And as London has grown and it's developed, we have an awful lot of concrete hard standing, and instead of the water infiltrating into the soils and into the swales and grasslands, it's running off and it's going into the sewage system. And currently, if we have even just 2 millimeters of rainfall, then that causes sewage to overflow into the River Thames. So why were we set up? Why was there a need for a super sewer? Well, in 1991, the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive was the initial driver for the Thames Tideway Tunnel. In 2009, the European Commission had threatened to take the UK to court and give them a substantial fine unless they were going to deal with the problem of being in breach of the Urban Wastewater Directive. The level of overflows were considered to be excessive, and before I came here, I just did a Google search to see if that history was still there, and of course, everything is always still available on the internet. So that article was from 13 years ago, just at the time when we were as the UK was about to be at risk of fining. And as you can see, the super sewer there, Thames Tideway super sewer, was already deemed to be in its planning stage and a solution to the problem. But we had to go through a number of optioneering, and it has often been said, why did we choose what we chose? Well, I'll just take you through what the various other options were. First option that we looked at was sustainable drainage systems. So these are swales, wetlands, just taking away some of the hard standing from London and using them as a solution so that there would be water infiltration. So that would be dealing with the rainfall issue. But it was considered to be cost disproportionately more money in order to do this, and with London being a very historic city, it would have taken a lot of time and a lot more disruption and a significantly more cost to undertake a SUD system. We could also provide extra capacity within the existing sewage system, so just upgrade it and increase the existing sewage system as it is. But again, that with all the utilities and everything else that was associated with that, that also wasn't considered to be a suitable option. And then also the final option was to convert the combined drainage system into a separated system. So have a separated system running alongside the current system, and again, that wasn't deemed to be, within a very congested city, the right option for us. So what our solution was that it was inappropriate to do nothing, and in 2007, the UK government concluded that the Thames Tideway Tunnel was the preferred solution. And there is a very interesting book that has been written about it by a former colleague on the Thames Tideway Tunnel and how it was, and how the whole planning process was developed. But that's just an example of the timeline there. So back in 1991, we were at risk of being in breach. We then undertook the Tideway Tunnel strategic study, which came out with those 4 different options. 2014 was when we got planning permission for the super sewer, and we are now down at, obviously, 2023, and we are now about 12 months out from actually commissioning the system, testing, rather, the system ahead of commissioning. So in about 12 months' time, we'll go through a process of testing and commissioning, when London will start to see some benefits of the Tideway Tunnel, and then at 2025, we hand over to Thames Water, who will then operate the system on our behalf. So the project is deemed to be a project of national significance. It was essential to meet the statutory requirements. It is essential to meet the ecological water quality objectives of a major river, and also to reduce the risk of human health impacts, because we have a lot of users of the river, people that row on the river, swim in the river as well, and as I understand it, when I've spoken to rowers, even this littlest bit of water, if that splashes up to them while they're using the water, that can cause them to have sickness, and also to reduce the aesthetic impact. So that's sewage-derived litter. That's everybody that's putting water wipes, earbuds, and everything down into the system that creates the blockages within our system and then comes out onto the foreshore. And we see these big mounds of wet wipes on our foreshore. You think that's the natural topography of the foreshore, when in fact, when I have been down there doing a foreshore pick, you will pick it up and it's just congealed with water wipes. So that is going to help to stop all of that pollution on our foreshores. And arguably, these are just some headlines from the UK press over the last 12 months. We were considered to be a relatively controversial project when we were first given planning permission in 2014. Why are you doing the solution that you're doing, which is a big concrete tunnel? And I would say that arguably the Thames Tideway Tunnel is even more important today than it was when we were granted planning permission. It's a solution that will alleviate more than 95% of the worst sewage going into the River Thames. But what is our solution? Our solution is part of 3 separate solutions. So I'm talking about the Thames Tideway Tunnel today, but we have really taken this as a 3-pronged approach. So in a typical year, which still exists today, there's 50 to 60 overflows of CSOs, combined sewer overflows. These are literally circles in the river walls that expel sewage into the river. And that's equivalent to 110 million meters cubed of sewage discharged into the tidal River Thames. So as part of the London Tideway improvement works, it includes upgrade to the sewage treatment works that you can see on the map there, which has been undertaken by Thames Water. It's also included the Lee Tunnel, which the Abbey Mills CSO is has been one of the worst polluting CSOs within the whole of the River Thames. And that Lee Tunnel is intercepting that CSO and taking it for treatment at Beckton, sewage treatment works. And then Tideway is this 25-kilometre tunnel running from West Acton, following the route of the River Thames until it branches off in the east under the Limehouse Cut, and then connects up to the Lee Tunnel and then on to Beckton from there. So the London Tideway improvement works is 3 improvement works. The sewage works have been undertaken already, as has the Lee Tunnel, and so the final element to it is the Thames Tideway Tunnel. But before any of that, this is just a graphic of the millions of cubic meters that were going into the tidal River Thames before any of that work took place. So this is before the sewage treatment works and before the Lee Tunnel. You can see that Abbey Mills there, which I spoke about, is over here. That was one of our worst polluting CSOs, and also at our pumping stations in Hammersmith in the west and the Western Pumping Station, and this is Greenwich within East London. Onto that, you overlay the Lee Tunnel and the sewage treatment works, and you'll see that there's significant reduction across the piece of raw sewage going into the River Thames. And as you can see, with the Lee Tunnel in place, there is currently no pollution going into the River Lee because of that Lee Tunnel. So that has been a really great success story. Lay on top of that the final element, which is the Thames Tideway Tunnel, and you'll see that we still do have some discharges, but it's obviously being significantly reduced. So we do still expect to have some spills, around about 5 a year in an average year, and with climate change, we think that that may increase possibly to around 8 times a year. And just to talk about climate change, we did an awful lot of modelling on the future climate predictions based on increased rainfall against the UK's Met Office climate predictions of 2009, which were the best climate projections that we had at the time. And even looking at the current, more up-to-date climate projections, we're still expecting that it will service us appropriately around 8 times per year up to 2080. We have responded as an organisation to the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures. We do think that our tunnel will be fit and resilient for future climate predictions, and that it has been sized appropriately and adequately to take the extra impacts of increased and more frequent rainfalls, more intense rainfalls than we're seeing at the moment. And in a bit more detail, so our tunnel is 25 kilometres long, running from West London right the way through central London. You see the Houses of Parliament here, and the London Eye and Tower Bridge. And then at this point here, we have Greenwich, and then it cuts off under the Limehouse. It stops following the River Thames and ends up joining Abbey Mills pumping station, which then takes the sewage off to Beckton through the Lee Tunnel. We're 7.2 metres wide, which is the equivalent of 3 double-decker buses side by side within the tunnel, and we're gravity-fed. So in the west, we are around 30 metres deep, and it's on a slow incline from west to east, and at its deepest in the east, we're about 66 metres deep. So that means that it's a really passive asset in operation. We are a concrete tunnel. We do have an embodied carbon footprint in terms of the concrete that we've used in order to create the tunnel. But once the tunnel is in operation, it's gravity-fed, and it's a passive asset, so it doesn't need a lot of energy associated with its operation. So as you can see there, how the tunnel works, this is an example of, this is actually our Victoria site, which is opposite the London Eye there. And as you can see, we have had to work across a number of different complex environments, including utilities network, the London Underground network. And what we have here across the project is a number of drop shafts. And what they're doing is they're intercepting from the current low-level sewage treatment works, taking it down into a shaft, and this is where the engineering gets really interesting. Obviously, you're going to have a big volume of water coming down there, and it goes down under a vortex. So the vortex removes some of that energy from the water and the sewage that's going down the shaft, takes the air out of it. We don't want any air in it because that could cause issues in the tunnel itself, and then takes it down to the bottom of the shaft there where the pressure is reduced so it doesn't cause any force onto the base of the shaft there, and then takes it off into our tunnel itself. So all the way along the 25-kilometre route, we've got a number of these shafts where the CSO is intercepted down into our low-level tunnel underneath. It's also deemed to be a self-cleaning asset. So to put anyone down there in terms of health and safety risks, we don't want anyone to go down there unless we absolutely need someone to go down there to do some repair work. So we are looking at how we may be able to monitor it in terms of using some sophisticated systems, like autonomous systems that will be able to scan the tunnel and see how it's performing. But it is self-cleansing. It is supposed to need minimal maintenance. Above ground, as I'll show a bit later, we've got some new areas of public realm, and within those areas of public realm, we'll have kiosks, which is where all the mechanical and electrical engineering equipment will be held. But we are not Thames Water, so Tideway is an independent company. We trade as Tideway in Companies House with Bazalgette Tunnels Limited in recognition of Sir Joseph Bazalgette, and we were set up as an independent infrastructure provider. Ofwat, the Office of Water and Regulation in the UK, is our legal regulator. We've also got Thames Water, we will pass the asset over to in 2025. Once the system has been tested, we will pass it over to Thames Water, who will then manage it, but Tideway itself will continue to exist as the project has a 120-year design life, and we've raised money and debt to fund the project. Jacobs are our program manager, and we have a number of insurers and lenders. We have, at the moment, we're working with our main works contractors across those west to east, that's across 3 different contract packages. We're currently more than 85% complete, so we've finished tunneling, and we're nearing the end of the project now. And DEFRA, the Department of Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, is our government sponsoring body. So we're independent from Thames Water. We have a 120-year design life, and as I said, Thames Water will operate the tunnel after systems acceptance. We are owned by private investors, Allianz, Amber, and Dalmore. So there is pensions that are linked to the Thames Tideway Tunnel, and they are investing university pensions actually in the Thames Tideway Tunnel. Should we ever needed a government support package, then we did have a support package that we could have turned to if we needed it up until systems acceptance, but at 85% complete now, it's unlikely that we would be needing that. And in terms of finance, so 4.9 billion euros, or 4.4 million pounds, is the current cost of the Thames Tideway Tunnel. And that is set out in a number of different ways. So 3.5 billion in terms of Tideway itself. We raised equity through our private investors there. And then debt, we went out to the market, and I'll talk about that on the next slide, to raise debt through green bonds. And also Thames Water bill payers, no more than £25 per year will be charged to Thames Water bill payers in order to fund the Tideway Tunnel. And what were the investors' motivations? Why were they invested? This was back in the early days. Were they wanting to invest in Tideway? It was critical infrastructure. We had that government support package, and that gave our investors assurance that they could come to us and get a preferential rate on their investment because we had that should we ever need it. What do they want in return? They want us to deliver on time and on budget. So we are still on time. We did have some delays of only about 6 months because of COVID, but other than that, we are expected to be operational by 2025. We have strong governance and regular reporting, and we're considered now to be out of, I suppose, the risk area and moving as we would be expecting to. And what do they want back? They will get their revenue, as I said, from Thames Water bill payers, and we can refinance if we need to, but we've currently raised all the finance that we need. And then in terms of financing, as I said, when we went out to get debt, we raised it through green bonds. So we are considered to be a pure play project. So if anyone's investments, if you look at your pension investments and where your pensions are invested, Tideway is considered to be a green investment, a pure play investment. We were oversubscribed. Whenever we went to market to raise green bonds, they were oversubscribed. And as you can see, we've also got a KPI-linked loan, which is linked to the performance of our sustainability program. So if we perform at a certain level against our sustainability KPIs, that gives us a preferential return on our revolving credit facility through our sustainability-linked loan. And then just to talk a little bit more around our ESG strategy. So as I said there, our debt is linked to our sustainability performance, and our sustainability performance encompasses 5 themes which are codified within our legacy plan, and they are 54 legacy commitments set around 5 themes of environment, health, safety, well-being, economy, people and place. As opposed to everybody else, they may call it sustainability. We just happen to call it legacy. If we achieve, and we have an 85% target, and we generally achieving at least 90% of those legacy commitments being on track. We've also mapped our legacy commitments to the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and what we consider to be our core goals are UN SDG 6, clean water and sanitation, and UN SDG 11, sustainable cities and communities. So that's what we consider the long-term benefits of the project to be. And what we show here is, on the right-hand side, is all of the SDGs that we contribute to during construction. And every year within our sustainability and our annual report, we show how closing out of our legacy commitments is helping us to contribute to SDGs, and we've mapped those down to the target level of the UN SDGs. We've also undertaken an ESG rating, and we've achieved 76 out of 100, which was one of the highest scores in terms of an ESG rating for any infrastructure project, which we were really pleased about through S&P Global Ratings. We've also applied the lens of social value to our legacy program. We've had a 2-year journey looking at the social value creation. So I know that some people may look through the lens of legislative requirements. We considered legislative requirements to be the bare minimum. We wanted to do so much more. So what our social value analysis has shown, and it was launched and published only just last week, is all the additional value that Tideway has brought through above and beyond legal requirements, from the local employment of apprentices to employing people with convictions to our STEM program to a volunteering program. It really looks at the additionality that Tideway has brought above and beyond legal requirements. And our wider legacy is obviously we should have a big benefit for ecology of the River Thames. The River Thames is already quite biodiverse. We have more than 100 different fish species within the River Thames. We also have a very thriving population of seals within the Thames, so even though it's quite murky and it looks a bit mucky and we do have sewage in it, it's actually really quite biodiverse. And as I pointed out earlier, the River Lee, since the Lee Tunnel has been in operation, we've had back in 2022, there was an ecological survey, and it was really quite impressive to see the fish that had been brought back to the River Lee when it was biologically dead because of sewage. So although we have never put a metric on how the Tideway Tunnel will improve biodiversity, we anticipate that if we know what the species population is now, and we work with Zoological Society London to monitor this, we would hope that once the tunnel is operational after a few years, we would see that ecology improve even further. We are also incorporating ecology into the construction of the asset. So here at our Chelsea site, you will see that this is reed beds, and this is going to be floodable. So creating ecological habitats within the river structures that we're creating. This is a new river wall, and within that we are creating micro-habitats for invertebrates and other fish species and marine life to live in. And this is a kiosk. This is a kiosk in our Barn Elms wetland, Barn Elms West Centre, western end of the tunnel in London. And what we've done there, we've clad it in slate. All of our kiosks, although you can't see it here, do have brown roofs on them. And here we've got a bug hotel. So we are hoping that, being really sensitive to ecology in all of our above-ground structures, as well as our river wall structures, will help to also improve biodiversity. But one of the key things that we're leaving for London is not only improved ecology and a reduction in human health risk days and better water qualities, it's 3 acres of new public realm for London. It's really unusual to be able to create new public realm for London, and we're creating 7 areas of new public realm right into the river. And what that gives is people hopefully greater connectivity into the river, because these structures are basically hiding the shafts beneath their feet, and it is those shafts which are dropping down around 20 to 25 meters that we have to cover up. And so we're creating the new foreshore along the river, new public realm rather, along the riverbed. So what we have here, we have some areas in West London. These are our central London habitat public realm areas, and this is King Edward Memorial Park out in the east. So this is Putney. So Putney is a really important site for us. It's the beginning of the Oxford to Cambridge boat race, and this is the new bit of public realm that will be created will be created at the start line for the Oxford to Cambridge boat race. Within each of our public realm areas as well, we have public art installations which tell a story about the local communities in which that public realm is being constructed. This is Chelsea, so this is opposite Chelsea Pensioners and the Chelsea Flower Show. So what we try to do here is we've got some artwork along here in the way of colourful bricks, which ties into the Chelsea Flower Show. And this will all be floodable here. So this is where we will be creating floodable public realm and wetland areas for species and wetland habitats. Blackfriars is a key central London site and one of our biggest central London sites. And here you can see is the kiosk with the brown roof on top. And this area never used to exist. So what you can see is we are reclaiming some of the river. We've had to reclaim some of the river. But in reclaiming part of the river, we've tried to create public realm spaces that people can use in many different ways, but also just to have that greater connection with the River Thames and learn more about the River Thames. And that's just the same site, but down at the walkway level. And then this is the final site over at King Edward Memorial Park in the east. Again, you see it's very unusual in London in particular to be able to get so close to the river, and that allows you to get close to the river. Some areas will also be floodable, so you'll be able to, with some sense, be able to walk in the River Thames as well. That's it. Thank you.